Home. Chapter 38. A Miraculous Ladybug Fanfiction written and narrated by Mira Rose. Artwork by XAA on Tumblr. You can find a link to the artist's Tumblr in the description box below. If you haven't already, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you need to, you can find the other 37 parts of this story linked in the description box. Bonus points if you leave a comment on this video. If you don't know what to comment, put moving day. Now then, please enjoy Chapter 38. Adrien aggressed. As warm and comforting as the mixture of sleep and late morning sun was, Adrien had a hard time peeling his eyes open. Marinette was asleep on his chest, curled up with Tiki plopped beside her. Plag would never snuggle up like that. A quick glance showed he'd fallen asleep mid-bite of camembert, lounging with no modesty on his desk. "Hey," he murmured, tapping Marinette's shoulder. He didn't have to go to school, but he could already feel the anxiety she'd have from sleeping in. "Come on, you're late." She groaned, as he knew she would, before waking with a start. Tiki also awoke groggily, but she wasn't speeding around the room looking for a backpack. "It's not here," Adrien said, ruffling his bedhead into something more manageable. "Take my old bag. It's got a laptop and a notebook. That should get you through the day." "Thank you!" Marinette exclaimed, rushing toward it like a parched woman offered water. She noticed him tapping his cheek and pressed her lips to it before flashing herself into red and black. He grabbed her arm and got one more peck before she zipped away, a flurry of anxious energy as she went to school. Flopping onto his back, Adrien closed his eyes. He'd sleep a little longer. It was moving day, after all. Finally, it was moving day. Well, there wasn't much to move. His father was upset and didn't approve it, which meant most of the stuff wasn't going with him. But he'd signed the lease a few weeks before with an NDA and got to pick up his keys in an hour. It was appropriate, as he was turning 19 this year, despite it taking longer than he thought it would. Okay, yeah. Nino would come over to help after his work study, but for now he'd take the 2 boxes of what he actually cared about and hit the streets instead of sleeping. If his father decided to get rid of everything else, so be it. He'd taken the extra time over the last year to shuffle his assets to accounts Gabriel nor Natalie could touch, and it paid off. They'd figured it out last week, but it was too late to stop. Sure, they still held on to payments from various contracts, and Adrien aggressed the brand, but even the meager scraps he'd scavenged would be enough to live off of for the next year or so if he didn't squander it. Taking his boxes and Plag, Adrien took one last look at his bedroom, then left without a word to the house he grew up in. Adrien hadn't accounted for rain, but it wasn't bad enough to worry about what was inside the box yet. His attitude was as sunny as his hair and as sweet as a cinnamon roll. He hopped on a train, and 2 stations later walked 3 blocks to stand in front of his new apartment building on Rue de Nancy that would put him back €900 a month. Checking in at the front desk, Adrien got his keys and made his way up to the 25 square meters of a studio apartment. Yes. Bare floors greeted him as he dropped 2 boxes on the floor, arms numb after their adventure through the heart of Paris. Wow. Could his old bed even fit in here? Whatever. It was his, and under a false name, no less. If he was lucky, it'd be at least 3 months until someone tracked him here. This location was hard to slip in and out of as Cat Noir, but the alley behind the building was an easy place to drop in with a mask and leave as a famous model without being seen. He'd already done a security camera check and knew where all the worst angles were. This would be a good place for both Cat Noir and Adrien Agreste. Worst case, he'd use the window above his radiator. He couldn't help but laugh when he tried the shower. It blasted with cold water as it sputtered, not growing to a steady stream until after his butt cheeks were pressed against the glass trying to get away from it. It didn't help. He could barely fit in the shower as it was, so there was no chance of avoiding the water. Gritting his teeth, Adrien began washing his hair as his body quivered. It didn't get warm until he was nearly done, so he spent an extra minute getting warm before it nearly scalded him. Getting out of the shower, pink as a lobster, Adrien rubbed the steam off the mirror above the sink, just barely large enough to see his face in, when something caught his eye. Something moving caught his eye. A roach. There was a cockroach in the bathroom. Standing in only a towel, Adrien jumped onto the pedestal sink and screamed, mostly out of surprise rather than fear. The roach scuttled away, but Adrien couldn't unfreeze himself after the adrenaline rush. Okay, breathe. One foot to the floor, and then the other. It wouldn't be too hard. All he had to do was wait. Gravity shouldn't work like this. It wasn't the thought he expected to have as the pedestal broke beneath him, but it rang through his head as he landed on all fours, slipping on the damp tile until his chin hit the ground. He felt water droplets on his back, stunning him with a mixture of pain on his upper half and gooseflesh on his rear as the droplets transformed into a running steam of cold, cascading down between his butt cheeks. But instead of focusing on his newly broken sink or what was going to become an abrasion on his chin, Adrien could only look at the tiny intruder in front of him. There it stood, the smug cockroach, staring at him as its little antennae wiggled in the air a few centimeters in front of him. Pouncing the air, Adrien fled the bathroom, losing his towel by the time he made it to the other end of his 25-square-meter apartment. It took him a moment to realize he was exposing his family jewels in front of the lone window in his apartment. Yikes! He slammed his rump to the floor in a last-ditch effort to retain his modesty, because there was no saving his dignity at this point. Oh, why did he go with a ground-floor apartment? Of course there were roaches! Well, bruising his butt cheeks hadn't been on the itinerary for today, but here he was. May as well make the best of it. At least he'd had the common sense to slam the bathroom door, so at least the demon-spawned insect couldn't find him in here. The problem was that all of his clothes were in the bathroom. And his towel. He was crouching in his birthday suit in a studio apartment, sopping wet and surrounded by a bare floor and walls. Ah, Camembert. He was in trouble. Plague? Adrien called out, hoping his Kwame could hear him. Plague? He heard a grunt from the bathroom before his partner floated through the door, clearly disgruntled from waking up early. There better be Camembert. Plague yawned. Hey, I need you to get me some clothes. Plague stared at his body before snickering. Oh, this isn't funny, Plague. What happened while I was sleeping? Went for the fermented cheese instead of the regular stuff and blacked out? Please, think of the cheese store. 5. 5 rounds of Camembert? Come on, Plague. We talked about this. I have to live on a budget now. No, 5 minutes. 5 minutes to get me clothes? 5 minutes of me putting whatever cheese I want in a basket at Leon's cheese store. Adrien wanted to strangle the magical being. Why couldn't he do this for him as a friend? Also, couldn't he just order him as a master? More like 5 seconds. 20 seconds. 5 seconds. 15? Plag tried. 10. And only in the discount section. Deal, Plag cackled. Just say the magic words for clothes. Please? No, peasant! Claws out! Oh. He'd forgotten about that. He had a supersuit. He'd forgotten about it, and that mistake was going to cost him nearly 100 euros of cheese. Claws out, he muttered begrudgingly. Embarrassed, Cat Noir made his way to his usual boutiques, only to realize what kind of prices they came with. Was he fated to live in the suit forever? How were clothes so expensive? Dodging the paparazzi, Cat went to Nino's house. Sure, it surprised him, but it's not like Cat didn't know he was carapace, and Nino lent him a shirt and jeans, no questions asked. Picking up a set of underpants from the corner market, Cat trotted back to his apartment, wondering what the gossip blogs would write by evening. It wasn't until after Adrien dressed himself in Nino's clothes that he realized he'd messed up. Nino was coming. Nino was coming to help him get furniture, and he was wearing the clothes he gave to Cat Noir. Camembert. All Adrien wanted was to create a new home for himself, and somehow ended up in yet another bad luck predicament. Pulling out his phone, Adrien dialed the person he should have gone to in the first place. He wanted to get away with not telling her until after the move, but he'd given up on impressing the woman a long time ago. Marinette, he said when the line clicked. I need help. Thank you so much for listening. Chapter 39 is on the way. Don't forget to tune in for Home Chapter 38.5, which is going to be a video that's just a minute or two long with the layout of Adrien's studio. I feel with all of the scenes upcoming, it'd be best if I just put photos in a video for you. So again, be on the lookout for 38.5, which is Adrien's 25 square meter apartment with a teeny tiny bathroom. So thank you for listening. If you've made it this far, comment, Camembert. I will catch you in the next one. Bye!